Hi guys, I'm Norb.
And I'm Mike.
And we are The Watchmen.
The men who watch.
If it's on a screen, we're watching it, talking about it, and sharing our thoughts about it with all of you.
Today we're going back to 1954 to do a review of what many say is one of the greatest films ever made, Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window.
Yes, but before we do that, we just want to say a quick shout out and thank you to all of you who are watching on our YouTube channel. Thanks for your support. Feel free to hit that like button and the subscribe button and the notification bell, and that way you will always catch an episode and whenever a new one comes out. And for all of you who are listening on the podcast, please continue to do so. Share it to your friends and send us an email or a message or in the comments and let us know what you think of the show and if you have any ideas of suggestions for what we should talk about in a future episode. So, Rear Window.
Rear Window is the story of a recuperating news photographer who believes he has witnessed a murder. Confined to a wheelchair after an accident, he spends his time watching the occupants of neighboring apartments through a telephoto lens and binoculars, and he becomes convinced that a murder has taken place. This is directed by Alfred Hitchcock, who is known as the master of suspense, and it stars James Stewart. I don't know, I want to say Jimmy Stewart, but it says James. I'm sure he'd prefer James Stewart. James Stewart as L.B. Jeff Jeffries, Grace Kelly as Lisa Carol Fremont, and Wendell Corey as NYPD Detective Lieutenant Thomas Tom J. Doyle. That is one heck of a long character name. Thelma Ritter is Stella, and Raymond Burr is Harry Mason, many of you might know as Lars Thorwald. And I give a special shout out to Judith Evelyn as Miss Lonely Hearts because you feel so sorry for her in the movie.
But everything has a good ending. So yes, this is our first Hitchcock movie.
It is.
I'm glad we're doing this one. This is one of my, I haven't seen, actually, we talked about the films by Hitchcock of ones to do, and I've only seen a handful. I realize there's a lot more I haven't seen than ones I have seen, but this is definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah. And I think I've always thought the gentleman who was named Alfred, whose last name was Hitchcock, he just got the golden name. Because the name Hitchcock, it just is synonymous with horror and suspense, and the name itself kind of lends to kind of a scary tone to it. So he was blessed with a kick-butt name.
And maybe it was just because we grew up knowing that he was already a legend in terms of suspense and horror and filmmaking, but before then, was that name a creepy name? I don't know, but it just certainly sounds like when you look at it in writing, it just looks scary. So it's just master of suspense. He definitely has some definite historic and classic cred when it comes to those. And this is definitely no exception. This is a fun film.
You know, something I miss, when you go back to these older films and shows, I know Alfred Hitchcock did a TV show, much like The Twilight Zone. And, you know, Alfred Hitchcock was known as you'd hear the dum 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 dum, and then he'd go, "Good evening." And he would talk to you about what you're going to see. And it was similar with The Twilight Zone and Rod Serling. I always get a kick out of watching the old Twilight Zone shows and always listening to Rod at the end, smoking a cigarette, talking to you, telling you about next week's episode. And something lost. We don't, you don't have a Rick from The Walking Dead talk to you at the end to let you know about the next episode. They don't do that anymore.
That's true. The hosted shows where they literally come on there and tell everybody what it's going to be about. It's it's a rare breaking the. That's why when they do break the fourth wall in those few shows that we see, it's always a special thing. Like, oh, he's talking to us, and it's something cool because that's true. We don't get that kind of hosted vibe much anymore. So, but yeah,
I miss that. I like that. I think that's why I like visiting those old shows. I think it's neat to have the host chat with you. So, bring it back. Somebody bring it back.
But on this one, we only see, as with every film, Hitchcock is famous for making an appearance in every show. He makes his cameo. Did you see the cameo? Did you?
I did. I saw him. Yep.
Yeah, he's hard to miss because he's a very distinctive-looking guy. So he's in one of the scenes working on a clock or something in one of the other rooms across the way. But
I will start and set the stage in saying that I convinced my 13-year-old son Brett to watch this with me. And when I said, do you know who Alfred Hitchcock is? He says, yeah, didn't he do Psycho? So he's aware of Psycho. That somehow has come across the radar of a 13-year-old, maybe through some kind of YouTube meme or something. But I told him I wanted him to watch this with me. And again, he's a good sport. He always will say, okay. And about the first 20 minutes of this film, it's tough. It's tough for a kid of that age because there's a lot of talking. It's slowly setting the stage. But what was really awesome is by the time you got to the end of this film, Brett was 100% in, and it was great to see. So, and what did your girls think of the film?
They didn't, because they did not watch it. I watched it by myself. No, I might. This is a movie I think Sophie would probably sit through and enjoy. She has the patience to kind of sit through and let things develop. But, there's definitely when you look back at movies of certain periods, everything has certain styles that reflect that era, from the cinematography to just even the way they talk. And it's funny when I do watch movies with my kids, and it's just older films, and older meaning sometimes only going back to like not that far long ago. Maybe I think when you distinctly notice it is usually when you start entering around the 80s and earlier. But sometimes there's just a certain, when it comes to the voices of actors, the way they talk, the way there's a certain sound quality to it, because nowadays everything's so rich and dynamic and every movie sounds good. But back then there was a certain kind of quality. I don't even know how to put it, but it's not beefy and bassy, but it's kind of got a thin old-time radio sound to it. And there's also a way of talking that was just a certain kind of way that we need to go investigate what's happening over here. It's
really more of a theatrical stage type of speaking. I really think that back then actors were still, because theater I still think was number one. So I just think it was more commonplace to talk like this. I am going to go outside and find out what's happening.
Although there are definitely some scenes, the more intimate ones between Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly, where they are definitely just like face to face, and it's very whispery and intimate and, not theatrical in that way. And so they do break through those things, but there are a lot of times where you just feel like you're listening to, this is 50s. It's still got that 50s sound to it. But what I like about this movie, I think it was very unique. And I, again, haven't seen enough of all the Hitchcock films to speak to what the other ones are like. But this one was unique because it was a one location show. This could have been, you could visualize this as a play, because it really is all in one room. The protagonist character, the whole time, he is one place, basically 99.9% of the time sitting down in a wheelchair with his leg in a cast. And the rest of the time just looking out his window, observing all the different people in their different apartment windows across the way. And it's amazing how you can do an entire feature and make that intriguing when you really never leave that room. You're just in the room or you're looking out that room. And it's a really brilliant approach to be able to make that compelling. And as it goes and develops through and you start to get more and more invested and the tension rises, you definitely find yourself kind of going, ooh, no, it's, watch out, get out of there, that kind of stuff. And so it's a unique film. I don't know if any other films by Hitchcock are like that. The ones that I have seen definitely are not. I think of The Birds and Psycho and North by Northwest. There might be another one in there, but I mean, these are all big out in locations types of movies. So to have one like this where it was really just uniquely all taking place in this, one room, it's pretty amazing how I was able to craft an entire compelling story from that.
You're talking about maybe showing this to Sophie. I felt like she was next to us though when Grace Kelly showed up. I could hear Sophie in my ear saying, "How old is she? She looks too young for him."
It was funny because even in the movie, there's a scene where they're looking at you mentioned the what's her name, the late the sad one who's always
Mrs. Lonely Hearts.
Mrs. Lonely Hearts. She comes home with a much younger man, and they even say, "Oh, how old is he?"
Yeah.
So, but I think that's the difference, though. Back then, it was okay to have an older guy with a younger woman. I mean, we've seen so many movies, especially from that period, where you'll see a man who's definitely at least a good 20 years older than his romantic interest. But you flip that around and you have a woman who looks like she's like 5 years, 10 years older, and it'd be like, whoa, how old is he? What's going on here? But yeah, definitely. I don't know what their age. I didn't look up what their ages were, but they look like there's got to be at least a good 15. Maybe
I would predict if you
years.
show this to Sophie, I bet she would comment on that. I mean, she already did on Braveheart, so.
Well, the Braveheart one, though, was how they showed at one point they met and they're probably 2 years apart, and then they meet again later and it's 20 years apart. So here, it would just be more like he's kind of old for her. It definitely would probably be the reaction. But speaking of the relationship side, one thing I gotta say, though, Grace Kelly, what a beautiful woman. What a beautiful actress. I was captivated because I hadn't seen one of her movies in a long time. And I'd even forgotten really how she was in this show, because I think when I saw this was probably over 2 decades ago. When I think I lived back in a house with you guys. So watching it again, and this time, kind of admiring her, her stunning beauty, was even just as she carried herself. There was a certain grace, it's no pun intended, but there was a certain grace to the actresses of that time. They were definitely much more conservative, they're going to be dressed more conservatively, although she does put on some, nightgowns and stuff like that. But there was just a certain class that these women carried with them. And they didn't have to dress all trashy to be sexy, but they were still, she was very beautiful. And you just look at her face and just kind of just get drawn into her. So she was fun to watch on screen. And she's a great performance. And the combination of the two, Jimmy Stewart's a little older. But
that's why I think it's kind of dumb when she first shows up and he's kind of telling her, I don't know if I want to be with you. I don't know if you can go out and go, out in the wilderness with me, go fishing. And I'm thinking, you're stupid. Of course anyone would want to be with her only because you're saying your lines. Yeah.
And, and I guess with him, obviously we don't see him do anything physical because he's confined to a wheelchair. But the way he ended up in that wheelchair is that he was shooting a race car event and he went out in harm's way. Like, I don't know if he's in the track or something, but basically the photo he takes, they do this really nice opening shot to sort of set up his backstory. But he takes some kind of picture where it's like almost like in the middle of the crash, and they show a still of the frame shot of it. And that's how he got injured, was because he was out there. So you're supposed to believe that Jimmy Stewart is a guy who goes out there and lives on the edge, living on the edge. And so maybe the thought is that she's, by relative standard, very conservative and maybe doesn't, quite live on the edge like he does. So maybe there's some truth to that character creation, but from just the age standpoint, you find it hard to believe that she couldn't keep up with him.
Well, as far as conservative and living on the edge, I mean, any thoughts you have towards the latter part of the movie, she's the one going out there climbing the scaffolding, which was fun because up until that point, she was just there to kind of chat. But all of a sudden she's out, let's go dig it up. Let's go find out. And it's like, wow, she's actually taking off here.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to that opening scene. There was a really cool opening shot, and I think it was kind of like one long take. But the camera starts where, again, it's the perspective from inside the apartment. I think it's like a camera panning of all the different rooms to sort of show what we're looking at here from the view of the rear window. So we see each one of the camera moves and one room to the next. So you're establishing these characters who we only will get to know from a distance. And then at a certain point, the camera then moves inside the apartment and then shows a bunch of the photos to establish Jimmy Stewart as a photographer. So you see all the photos he's taken, and then I think you see a shot of his love interest, I think was in there as well. And then the camera then reveals him in his wheelchair. And I thought, wow, what a great opening, long, cool shot. It just is like one thing to the next, and you don't really think about that this is one shot, but when you start to realize that it's pretty cool, pretty well done.
Well, the great thing about this movie is all of us can, at one point or another, have looked out the window to see what the neighbors are up to. It's just something everyone has done at one point or another. There's a curiosity in people of just watching others. And the cool thing about this film is that's what it's all about. It's all about watching others live their lives and what it means to be just either spying or a peeping Tom or in a question, is it ethical to even be doing what he was doing, just watching everybody? But being the audience, it's fun to be that voyeur and just watch all these characters through their various windows and how they're living their lives and going about their day.
Well, I think that's the statement the show makes is it right to do this? Is it right to judge people on what you see from the outside? Because I think the whole argument is, well, just because you see something from the outside doesn't mean that's what it really is on the inside. It's so easy to make a judgment of somebody, and what happens in somebody's house is really private, and we may never truly understand what goes on because we sort of have the version that we put out there for people to see, and then we have the version that's within closed doors, and we all have our secrets and our little things that not everybody probably knows about. So, yeah, the question of, do you do it in the first place? Which, when you're watching from your own house, there's nothing wrong when you're inside your own home looking out your window because that's your property. But the question is, when you get to the point where you're using long-range binoculars and lenses to really go in there and spy on people, I guess that's more of a question, not legality, but morality. Is this something you should be doing? And I think what's funny is everybody leaves their windows wide open. There's one lady in there who's always dancing and doing stretching, and she's bent over and everything. Is like, you might want to think about closing those curtains a little bit so that no peeping Toms have a full view, because they all know everybody's windows are showing. So it cracks me up how none of their neighbors, except for a few strategic moments, close their blinds when it's appropriate. But the rest of the time, they leave it wide open. And I think they justify it by saying, "Oh, it's so hot. It's so hot. Who would draw their curtains at this weather?" So they justify that you got to have your windows open because it's so hot you wouldn't be able to stand it. So it would be a boring movie if everybody had their windows closed and their blinds shut. You wouldn't see nothing. So when they do, it's like, "Whoa, what's going on in there now?"
I don't think you'd have a movie. It would be pretty boring.
It would be extremely boring. But so it's fun to ask that question. I think we've all had certain neighbors that you grew up with who were the nosy neighbor, the one who maybe not you wouldn't know from watching from their house, but the one who's walking around and tends to check people's things out and be the one who's trying to see who's got the longer grass and who's got this, because they had nothing better to do. Usually, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but usually the older people who are retired, got nothing else to do but sit around and wonder what the neighbors are up to. We've all had some of those. And even when we grew up in our house in the U District with all of the old roommates, we had a few neighbors who tended to want to see what's going on.
Oh, we did. Yes, we did.
So it makes life
I guess it comes down to how bored are you?
Yeah, just keep yourself busy and you wouldn't have to mind anybody else's business. But
one thing I'll say about this movie from a critical standpoint is this movie, I would say, must have had a fade to black probably 30 times throughout this film. And it would fade to black to signify a time jump. But man, it distracted me because I'm just not used to seeing that in films today. And I was thinking, well, what other ways can you show the passage of time? Well, you can have a caption that says, 2 hours later.
That can be distracting too.
But I couldn't think of any other way. I thought, well, if it, how else can you show the passage of time? You got any ideas, Norb?
Well, and I want to make a cinematic statement first about the trends of uses of fades and dissolves. First of all, you brought that up, and it reminded me of when we watched and did a review on Bridge Over River Kwai, which was, again, a movie from, I think, when was that year? Was that in the 70s, right? Early 70s, I think, when they made that one?
I believe so, yeah.
That was, at least in that movie, the year of the dissolve. They had so many dissolves. They didn't fade to black, but, a dissolve is still a fade. And there were a ton of them. And I thought a lot of them were unnecessary. Especially what's hard to watch a dissolve then is that when there was a dissolve, it's an optical effect that has to be produced, not like nowadays where it's all very seamless. Back then, when there's a dissolve, it's like you see the dissolve. It's like the dissolve is starting and the dissolve is finishing. And then when it's done, there's this hard cut back to the original film because they had to do these chemical passes. And so there's degradation during the dissolve that clearly when it started and when it ended. So it's even more distracting. If you watch movies these days, dissolves and fades have kind of gone the way of the voiceover movie trailer guy because they don't use them much. If they do, it's very specific and rare. But you just don't see a lot of fades and dissolves. And I think it's really kind of gone back to just hard cuts. And if that's the case, and obviously in every movie there's a transition in time, a lot of times they'll just cut to close-up of the guy waking up. And then that signifies the next day. So they could easily have done that. Just cuts to Jimmy Stewart's face with a slight different lighting change. Start with a wide shot that shows, like a dark view out the window, and then we cut to his face. I think that could have worked. I think it was just a trend. I think fades to black were kind of in then. And everybody just thought, hey, when the show's done, you fade to black. It's in the script. Fade to black. Black.
Well, this had a lot of them.
Fade out. There was a lot of them. So I think there are definitely could have been ways to do it, but that was, I think, just the trend. If I were doing it and I had to do it without doing fades, that's what I would do. Or like we said, use the clock thing, or really some kind of close-up of something, because you can always go to a close-up and establish something new. And as long as the lighting's different, it'll feel like a different day. But that's what I would do if I was making that. But I think shooting static close-ups of objects, I didn't see a lot of that in this movie. And I don't think that was the style back then. You didn't see a shot of a cup on a table or something. There was always people in the shots. So I think that was also a thing that they didn't do those artsy types of things quite yet that you could probably do now that would be totally acceptable. So it is fun to see the differences. Again, I talked about the voices and how people talked, but there's also cinematic styles. And then, music too. We talked about River Kwai as well. Like they had a lot of minimal music, and the times when it did play, it was almost distracting because it was like, ugh, this just sounds really odd and out of place. But I definitely want to talk about music in this show, but I've gone on for a little bit here, so I'll let you take on the next point before I jump to my observation about music in this show.
Well, my next point is a huge one. I don't think I've ever seen another movie where they lowered a little dog in a little basket from the second floor balcony so he could run around down on the ground.
It's clever. Dangerous, but clever. The only other movie with a basket and a dog is Wizard of Oz that I can think of, and they didn't lower him down 2 stories. But yeah, a pretty clever little device for... I don't think anybody would recommend that nowadays. Are you kidding? I'm going to call the Humane Society. But
I think watching this movie, I really felt bad for Miss Lonely Hearts. I really did. They set that up so well because when they first introduce you to her, she's letting someone in her apartment and she's very smiling, happy, and you think, oh, who is it? Who's coming in? And you slowly dawns on you that there's nobody coming in, that she's just playing a pretend fantasy that she has a companion, and she's pouring wine for her invisible companion and having dinner and talking, and then she's laughing with this invisible person, and then she slowly just puts her head down into the table, right? Because she's come back to reality that there's no one there and she's alone, and that was really sad. It's really sad, There are a lot of people that live alone that desire companionship, and that really just drove home the point of looking into someone else's life. That she would never let anyone see that, but of course she doesn't know anyone's watching. But then she finally meets someone.
Yeah, she finally does bring somebody home.
He comes in. He's a young guy, a nice-looking guy, but he clearly attacks her and is too aggressive, and she kicks him out. But then she's crying, and then she's gonna take too many pills, and they're worried she's gonna commit suicide. She did. It didn't, but I think, and that's probably driving home the point that just because you see things going on, you may not, it doesn't mean it's going to happen, or doesn't mean what you think is going to happen is going to happen, because you think she's going to commit suicide, but she comes to her senses.
Well, she comes to her senses because she's rescued by the sound of music coming from the upstairs window, which...
That's right.
I have a bit of an issue. I'm going to say I was going to talk about music, but I wasn't planning to talk about this, but I was thinking, this whole show, he's been playing music nonstop. Why all of a sudden at that moment does she decide, I'm going to be moved to the point where I'm going to stop my suicidal attempt because this music suddenly just warmed me and touched me? Because I thought, he's been playing music the entire time. Why all of a sudden now it doesn't make a connection?
If Alfred Hitchcock were next to you, he would slap you in the face and say, you are paying too much attention to details that don't matter.
But I argue that the devil is in the details, and they do matter. But I did wonder that, because they explained it. Obviously, they had to have kind of a vocal suggestion by Lisa, Jimmy Stewart's girlfriend, says something like, "Oh, she stopped because the music," and my first thought was like, what? I didn't buy it because it'd be one thing if it had just suddenly showed up for the first time and we'd never heard that music suddenly there, but.
I had forgotten that Lars Thorwald was played by Raymond Burr. It wasn't until he came in the door of his apartment and then I was like, oh my gosh, it's Perry Mason. Yeah. I forgot. Perry Mason plays this guy.
And my thought was, oh my gosh, it's Ironside. Actually, I knew he was in there, but I remember my first memories of Raymond Burr was from the movie or the TV show Ironside. I didn't watch Perry Mason till more like retro later, but Ironside I remember watching as a kid. I don't remember anything about the show. I just remember the open, the open of Ironside had this music, and then a gunshot, and it shows him drop, and that's why he's always in a wheelchair as the police investigator or whatever he was as Ironside. So that's my Raymond Burr introduction. The open of that show burned into my brain, never to be forgotten. But yeah, a big part of the show, and you don't really see him except through long lenses till the very end.
Well, I'd like to hear what you have to say about the music, so go for it.
Well, so it kind of ties in. It's what I would love to actually watch again because I wasn't thinking about it. So it wasn't until the end that I started to think about it, which was first when I looked back, as I got to the end of the show and then I looked back thinking about music or the lack thereof, I started wondering, was there even a score in this show? Because almost all the music we hear is ambient music coming from the piano player and sometimes when he had accompanying musicians, and they're playing different songs. There's a sing-along of the song Mona Lisa, and just different instrumentals, but it's being played as ambience by the piano player across the way. And that's almost throughout the whole show. So I do not recall a point at which there was actual score. And I could be wrong, I just don't remember it. And then, so there's that, and I thought it worked well because you just felt like you were always just in the apartment complex watching and hearing what's going on, never artificially told how to feel via sound. It's just whatever he was hearing, you would hear. If you hear him talking in the distance, you kind of hear the faint version of what they're saying. And then if you hear the music, it's that sound of what you'd hear if it were just echoing throughout an apartment complex. So it was never ever clear high fidelity music because it was always across the way. And then we get to the end where it's the big suspenseful climactic finale, and the absence of music, especially when he's kind of waiting for Raymond Burr to come to the door. Yeah. I'm like, I knew how I was going to go, and I'm still like, oh, this is so tense. But then as he starts coming in the door, and he starts coming in on him, and Jimmy Stewart starts using his flash bulbs to basically defend himself because it's all in the dark. And that part, I started wishing we had some score because it felt a little lacking in some pizzazz in the climactic moment here, especially with the light bulbs being the only thing that is kind of creating some action here. And so it was almost empty to a fault on that particular part. But if he really did do this whole movie without a score, maybe he just wanted to stick with that and say, I'm not scoring this movie at all. It's only going to be whatever we hear. So,
well, you know what I would say about that is I did read that Alfred Hitchcock spent a lot of time with sound designer working on real sounds. He wanted an ambience and that to be somewhat of a soundtrack of just the sounds of the apartment complexes and the people. And really, when you talk about the scene where he's coming at him and he's hitting him with the flashbulb, what I would say is the ambient score really was the shouting of the police and Lisa, and they're screaming, and he's yelling. And so I think probably the thinking behind Hitchcock is that that's going to be the tension, is all the shouting and screaming as the police are coming, pounding on the door. It's all happening at once.
Yeah, and it doesn't come to the very end when they're kind of fully engaged and they start kind of fighting. But just that part where he's walking up to him, I don't think there was even any ambience yet. It wasn't until he's like on him, then he starts yelling for help, and then the police arrive. So it really was just the sound of the crowd in the background, or actually, the crowd, everything had died down. It was really just in the room, and the sound of the flash bulbs and him dropping the bulb and putting the next one in. Actually, I looked up while we were talking. So veteran Hollywood composer Franz Waxman is credited with the score for the film, but his only contributions were limited to the opening and closing titles and the piano tune Lisa, written by one of the neighbors. So there really was no score during the film, which is pretty cool. How often can you say there's a movie without a soundtrack? I mean, you almost be like, are you crazy? How can you make a movie with no music in it? But there was plenty of music to listen to. It just is ambient music. It's kind of cool. Again, the simplicity of this film, from the music to the way it's a one location production, pretty awesome. Pretty cool how they did that. Speaking of that last scene, one thing I really liked about the cinematography of that moment is there's so many points where you see everything all the time because you are watching everyone. And so the points when anytime things get kind of scary is when it goes dark. Like in Thorwald's apartment, Raymond Burr's, when he turns the lights off and you don't know where he is anymore, suddenly you feel scared because there's something safe about spying on somebody because you can see their every move. And as soon as the lights goes out and you don't see that person, suddenly you realize you've gone from the stalker or the voyeur to now they're in the dark and you're lit. You're now more vulnerable than that person is, and you don't know where they went anymore. And there's something frightening about that juxtaposition of going from the person who's spying on everybody to when suddenly that's taken away, you're suddenly, I'm in the dark here. And it's a scary feeling. And at the end, when he realizes he's coming for him, he turns off all his lights, and the whole scene is in his room is almost entirely in darkness and shadows, and with the exception of this little bit of light on Raymond Burr's face, and the flashbulbs that he lets out. But I love that scene. I love the fact that it was so dark and shadowy and mysterious and suspenseful, because the rest of the show you're really pretty well lit and safely feeling, with the exception of a few dark windows. So when his room is dark and the evil neighbors coming to attack him, it's just a whole heightened level of you haven't had to feel that because you've always been safe in that apartment. Everything's going on out there, but once he's coming to you, all of a sudden you just feel the ultimate turning of the tables that you're no longer safe in this place.
It was a subtle thing, but I really liked how Jeff is sitting in the wheelchair, and a lot of times he's talking to either Lisa or Stella, and then he wheelchairs himself to the window, and there's a light change where he comes slightly out of the dark into the light. And it always was a subtle reveal, like he's exposing himself as well to being seen, and before he was in the shade of the inside of his apartment. And I liked that. It happened a lot when he would move forward and the camera would kind of pull back with him, and you'd see the light. You'd see this very soft line of light just rise up from his stomach area up through his chest up to just reveal that he's coming into, the window area. I like that a lot. Mm-hmm. The other thing I'll say about watching this movie, and we watched this off a high def Blu-ray that I have. So it was a very, very good quality Blu-ray that had just come out actually about 4 years ago. But I think it's so interesting that back at that time, if you were a blue-eyed actor, I think you were guaranteed work. And if you were a brown-eyed actor, you were in trouble, because there was something about blue-eyed actors where they had an advantage. And of course, their eyes in this movie were so blue. And I was thinking, okay, back then they didn't have visual effects to make their eyes bluer. And so they're using some kind of lighting technique to make those blue eyes pop. But to me, they were popping uncomfortably too much, because I was constantly looking at Jimmy Stewart's blue eyes and just thinking, those are so blue. And then Grace Kelly, who has blue eyes, their makeup artist was putting blue mascara around her eyes. And so her whole eye area was blue. And then Detective Doyle, when he comes in, he's got blue eyes. And I'm just thinking, this is like the blue-eyed fest. So I don't know if you know something about the historically why blue eyes were so important, and what were they doing to make those eyes pop like that? Because they were popping in a way that to me it was not realistic. But
I don't know. Other than I think there is something captivating about bright blue eyes. And as I was watching Jimmy Stewart in this, I was channeling Ryan Gosling. I was getting vibes of how he looked in this movie, and I was feeling, flashes to Ryan Gosling, who also has really blue eyes, and he has some movies like Drive where there are scenes where it's like, man, this guy's eyes are bluer than the brightest blue ocean. And I think it's just the fascination with that. I mean, even now when we'll be watching a movie and randomly a guy or a girl, with male or female with blue eyes shows up, and it doesn't have to be blue, it could be brown eyes, but when they have pretty eyes, my kids are the first ones to say, wow, he's got really pretty eyes, or she's got really pretty eyes. I mean, the girls are always observing these attributes, and there's something about whenever there's like really electric blue eyes, they just kind of like, wow, look how pretty her eyes are. I mean, it just catches your attention, I guess. And so even my kids now, they stand up and take notice whenever a very pretty blue-eyed actor or actress gets on the screen. As far as how they like that to make it go, I don't remember. I'm not aware of anything. I remember when we were watching Drive with Ryan Gosling, and we were talking about a scene where his eyes were really blue. He was talking about how our buddy Brad was saying, I remember they lit him in a certain way because they want the pupils. Remember, they want the pupils to be dilated, like really big. So, because if you have your lights are too bright, then your pupils will close up, and then the black part of the pupil won't look as big. And I think there's something about when the pupil looks bigger, it just has more of an open feel to the. Do you remember talking about that?
Yeah, vaguely. Yeah, vaguely.
Anyway, so I don't remember how they did it. If they lit low, shot in lower light, so that the eyes didn't have to be as adjusted to bright light. But anyway, I just think it's just a universal thing. Obviously now, like I wouldn't have had a chance back then if I was an actor because I got the wrong colored eyes. But things are different now, obviously, because if you have all the same, it kind of just all looks the same. So now we have much more, diversity and mix of things, and I think that's just.
Well, I read back in the 80s, some actors were surgically altering their eyes to make them blue. Some would. I mean, there are actors going to desperate measures to have blue eyes because it clearly was a selling point to getting jobs.
Well, and I remember first time. Well, I think it was when I was in college. I remember, that was the first time I was around a lot of different Asians and a lot of Filipinos, and that was the first time I met multiple people who were brown skinned like me with black hair and had blue eyes. And I just remember, how is that possible? And I looked closely and I realized, okay, they're wearing blue contacts. They're wearing contacts. They want to look like they have blue eyes, but it looked weird. There's something about it because those contacts have that fixed, dilated pupil. It doesn't quite look normal. So I can always spot it a mile away. Go, wait a minute. Fake. Funny. Not to mention, there's something about blue eyes on a brown-skinned, black-haired person that right away, if you see it, it's not the most natural-looking thing. So then you have to look closer and go, oh, I see what's going on here. So, I don't know. I guess it's just one of those things. But I always say, don't make my brown eyes blue. Like the song says. So I'm good with mine. But it did stand out. And you're just like sapphires in their eye sockets, glowing blue. So, I mean, I don't know if the colorist boosted those up, but it definitely was a nice print. I mean, the colors and the richness of this viewing of this clip was really nice. So
the only thing I would say about it is it felt a little soft. The whole image had a soft feel, and I thought, I know they'd use soft filters back then a lot because it would help the ladies have a nice soft face, add to their soft look of their face, and
the actors too probably. I know they want to try to minimize Jimmy Stewart's age as well, so we don't have that. Oh, hey, he looks kind of old for his age for her. Yeah. So it's possible that was by design. But
what would be interesting to see is they, in fact, it was in the news this morning, my video disc news, that they just announced that they did a 4K restoration of this film along with 3 other Hitchcock movies. And apparently it's got some new footage from Psycho, but they're releasing a 4K Hitchcock collection in September of Rear Window, Psycho, I think North by Northwest and Vertigo. So 4 Hitchcock movies. So it would be interesting to check that out and see if Rear Window looks any different. I don't know. Right. I don't know.
That extra
not sure
2K,
if you can make it any sharper.
How much of that 2K will they use to sharpen things up in details that weren't there? It's possible.
But it looked good. I mean, it was just a little soft. That's probably my only thing. But But yeah, I'm glad we watched this. I'd like to watch some other Hitchcock movies. I've never seen Psycho, and I feel like I should. And,
you've never seen Psycho?
No, the only Hitchcock movies I've seen at this point in my career would be North by Northwest and Rear Window. So I need to see more, and we can. I purchased the Blu-ray of the Hitchcock collection. We got about 15 Hitchcock movies. I actually like to see The Trouble with Harry. I was watching a trailer on that. Do you know about The Trouble with Harry? It's about it's a horror comedy. Harry is this dead guy, and his body keeps showing up everywhere. So like it shows a scene where these 2 feet are sticking out of a bathtub, and the kid's going, "Mommy, there's someone in our bathtub," and you see the 2 feet, and then some other kid finds this body out on the pasture. So the trouble with Harry is his dead body just keeps coming back. Showing up everywhere.
That's wild. Okay. Well, that would be one worth checking out since we both haven't seen it. But yeah, you got. I mean, the 2 horror classics by Hitchcock are Psycho and The Birds. I mean, those are. I think when you think of the 2 scary ones, those are 2 films that go hand in hand with scary Hitchcock films. So we've got to do at least one of those, and if not 2 at some point. So Psycho for sure, because that's everybody knows Psycho. Wing, 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 wing. Yep. I mean, that's classic. But yeah, this is good. This is probably, I don't know. I mean, I think I got to put the scary ones first. So I probably put Psycho, at the top of the list. But Rear Window, this one's probably up there in 2 or 3. I'm trying to remember. Birds I watched much later, but I don't know. This one might edge it. Rear Window might edge The Birds from just in my
research, Rear Window is really considered to be the best Hitchcock film ever made.
So it's all downhill from here.
So, yeah. Well,
start at the top and all goes down.
Yeah, I think again, I enjoy watching the classic films. I think I have a great appreciation for them, and there's something about watching movies that everyone who made them is dead. And it's like you're kind of opening up a something out of the basement vault, reliving something that a lot of people worked really hard on, and all those people are gone. So it's I enjoy visiting the older stuff. So, but that's pretty much all I got. I actually have we're gonna have a slightly longer surprise session. So if you're good, Norb, I think we should move on to it because this may go on a little bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was most of my notes. I covered everything I wanted to cover in this show. So yeah, just quick recommendation, you guys, if you haven't seen this yet, if you haven't already been spoiled by what the show is, you should definitely watch this. And if you haven't seen it in a while, watch it again because it's got some great things that maybe you wouldn't have caught the first time. I certainly saw things I didn't see the first time around.
Yeah, the nice thing is we didn't say this is going to be spoiler free, but what's cool is we really didn't spoil the movie too much. There's a lot we left out.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well,
I'm anxious to hear this surprise.
So this is going to take some time, but I dug into my past, and the first time I saw Rear Window was when I was taking a film class at Salem College back in 1989 called Understanding Movies. And I did tell the story of the whole girls' college experience and that in another show. But during my time in this 1-month January class, and this was really the class that made me want to be a filmmaker, but the class was called Understanding Movies. And I saw Rear Window. We watched a lot of movies during the month, and Rear Window was one I saw, and I remembered it. And that's actually one reason I suggested we do this. I remembered seeing that, and I thought I need to see this again. I haven't seen it since '89. So I dug into my box and I found some of my papers from that class. And I'm not going to read everything, but I'm going to get to one that we're going to spend a little bit of time on. But I'm going to hold up one. This is back in the days where we wrote cursive. I can barely read my own cursive. I was reading this last night, but I was laughing at these little assignments. So Norb, I don't know, we had to write about cinematic realism. So I wrote, cinematic realism involves filming in such a way that normal filming procedures are used. The director stays within the norm. So there's the definition of cinematic realism. And then there is what's called... I don't even know what
that means really, but...
So do you know what cinematic expressionism is? I had to define that as well. What's your definition of cinematic expressionism?
I'm not familiar with the term as it's probably meant to be, but I take cinematic and I take the word expressionism, so it's expressing something with cinema, but it's probably something totally different from that.
The good news is I would consider you a cinematic expressionist, because cinematic expressionism involves moving out beyond the norm. The director takes chances using different angles and lighting, etc. I definitely think you have taken chances in your career, so you are definitely a cinematic expressionist.
All right.
And then I had a little bonus note here. I wrote, a higher angle camera shot is used during filming in order to make the viewer feel as though he or she were godlike, because they are looking down upon the actors. The actors are made to feel helpless and vulnerable.
That's interesting. Did you make that up or did you pull it out of a textbook somewhere?
I don't know, man. I can't remember the details back in 1989. All I know is it's in my cursive. And I got a 5. I don't even know if a 5 is a good score, but I got a 5.
5 out of 5 or 5 out of 10?
All it is it's a scribbled 5. But this is where it gets kind of funny is one of the films we watched was a Buster Keaton film called Cops. I don't know. Did you ever see Cops? Do you know who Buster Keaton is?
I know who Buster Keaton is. He did all those crazy, wild stunts for real. And I might have seen clips from it, because I don't think I've really watched a whole lot of entirety Buster Keaton films in its entirety, but I've seen a lot of highlights from a bunch of different movies. Some that looked like cops were involved, so maybe I did see that one. But
well, here you can see my paper that was printed on the old dot matrix printer, and the professor's correcting my mistaken apostrophe in the title. I titled it COP''F, so he drew a little circle around the. You can see Michael Vincent Lorraine, Professor Jim Booth, in-class review number 11789. So I had to write a review of Cops. And look at the grade I got. I got a C+ on my Cops review, which I'm thinking, what the heck? This was like Jan term. This wasn't even like a full-on class. This was more like a chance to do something interesting. So he gave me a C+, and he wrote at the bottom of the C+, he says, I think you're dismissing Keaton too lightly. What about, it's hard to read his own writing. What about the conflict of man versus society? Is Keaton a criminal or victor in a bit of both? And he wrote, of course, part of the problem may be that you didn't get to see the entire film. Now, that's not my fault. That's his fault because he didn't show us the entire movie. I think it got cut short.
That's kind of messed up.
It gave me a C+. And you know, here's my last paragraph of this review. I wrote, overall, I thought this was very funny. Keaton went to great lengths in order to get you to laugh. For that, he should be commended. Keaton's films are the type where you laugh during the show and then you leave and forget about it. Therefore, I wouldn't classify his films as being the best of all time. However, they are still entertaining, kind of like a game of pool. You can forget about normal everyday life for a while and concentrate on some of the simpler things. That's not bad. Not bad.
Cinematic
that's better than a C+?
as a game of pool. C+. That's pretty funny.
It's funny to look into.
I don't think he wanted you to go deeper. He didn't want, you were blowing him off as too much of a, yeah, it's kind of fun, but yeah, you forget about it. I think he wanted you to go deeper into his analysis of Buster Keaton's contribution to the cinematic world is deeper than a game of pocket pool.
Well, and you know, I think back then, I know that that professors in college, they can't give everyone an A. They can't. It's like they got to have some kind of a curve, right? Not everybody can get an A because then you're looked at as too easy. So my guess is when you write papers and your whole grade is going to be based on papers, they're looking to be blown away. They want you to write something that's going to blow their mind, almost like you're Stephen King himself writing a paper. Now, I'm not Stephen King. I think I did a decent job, but you know, maybe some of the other girls in the class wrote something more interesting. I don't know, but I was clearly, even though I was the only guy in this class, he was not helping me out.
Well, maybe that was the problem. The fact that you were this one guy in an all-girls school, which I don't think you've told that full story. And for those of you who don't know the whole story, that college, the Salem College that Mike went to, was unbeknownst to Mike, an all-women's college. So when he showed up, he's the only guy in there.
I thought I told this story. I thought I did on the
Maybe,
show.
but the chances are the people who are listening to this didn't listen to that episode. But if they did, then it's just rehashing.
Well, I apologize. I guess I skirted through it. But yes, back in 1989, when I was at Pacific Lutheran University, there was they did what's called Jan term, and it's between first and second semester. So for the month of January, you can take a class either at your school or travel to another school and take a class. It's a chance to do something outside what you normally would do. So I picked this school in North Carolina called Salem College that I knew nothing about except it had a picture of it with snow. So I applied and was accepted and made flight plans and showed up, and it was a women's college. And I had no idea. And they thought I knew.
What I don't understand is, wouldn't they have said something about, there's a person named Mike applying to the all-women's college. Yeah, sign him up. Or did they not care?
Everybody says that. And they let men take classes there. Sometimes guys from nearby schools would take classes there because they'd have a particular class that was unique to the school. So occasionally there'd be guys there. You just couldn't graduate. That was the thing about a women's college. You couldn't graduate from it, but as a man, you could take a class. And so to them, it wasn't that strange. They just thought I knew. They thought I knew.
I see. You knew that you were attending in this circumstance.
And coming from Seattle, how many women's colleges do we have in the Seattle area? 0.
I didn't even know.
So I didn't know they existed. I thought they were something from the 1700s. So I showed up and got the shock of my life. And but I decided to stay, and I made the best of it. And I took a class called Understanding Movies, and it was me and about 22 girls. And I know I told this, but during the class, the professor told me, he says, I have a friend with a VHS video camera. If I get it to you, would you make a movie and star the girls in it as extra credit? And I said, I would. So I wrote this murder mystery and got me the camera, and I filmed for a week. And then I edited with 2 VCRs. Someone had a VCR and I borrowed it, and I edited just with 2 VCRs, the old no flying erase head. So every cut, you just had the colors go.
Yeah, I know that too well. We'd all had a living on that style for a long time when I was a kid.
So, but the class was called Understanding Movies, and what again I found was my paperwork. So my second paper, we could pick a film we liked. So I did a story on Walt Disney's Return to Snowy River, which was a movie I really, really liked when it came out. The sequel to The Man from Snowy River. And so as far as doing a paper on a movie I really liked, did I do any better? Nope. I got a C+/B- on this one.
Well, that's slightly better. B- is better than C+.
So I was clearly getting pigeonholed into a C average for this class.
Wow, this was killing you, man. This is hard on your GPA.
So my last paragraph of this, I said, as I indicated, this film is a work of cinematic art, which Walt Disney is always known for in the majority of films they have produced. There's nothing I didn't like about this movie. It is one of the few movies I will be able to watch again and again and never grow tired of. And that is true to this day.
That's where you went wrong. As soon as you say there's nothing wrong with this movie, as a professor, yeah, there is. What about this and this and this? I'm curious, what did he put? Do you have good comments on the end of your paper there?
Yeah, he wrote, you don't do a lot in the art in the way of it looks like he says dismissing actual cinematography if that is your aim here. I don't know, it's just another kind of, I didn't make a good enough case. That's what he's saying. I guess, I say cinematically, the film was shot entirely in Australia. Horses were the main source of transportation and income, and no trick photography whatsoever is used. The most breathtaking scene is where Jim Cray rides his horse down an almost vertical slope in order to catch the wealthy banker's son, Alistair Patton, who's stolen his horses in order to continue his pursuit of the beautiful Jessica Harrison. I don't know. I'm talking about, I guess I liked the camera shots. I'm saying they're great. I said the camera shots were perfect. This film is amazing. That's my writing. Obviously, I think he must have wanted me to be more negative. It's the only thing I can think of.
Maybe he didn't like the movie, so you're like on completely opposite ends of the
I'm guessing he probably never saw this movie. This was not.
Oh, sorry, you didn't watch it in class. You just picked
cinema
it and wrote about it.
It's one I liked. So the last paper I did, and I could read this for another show. If we decide to ever do a review of the movie Working Girl with Harrison Ford and Sigourney Weaver, I can read my paper. But I did an entire paper review of Working Girl, 1989. So what kind of grade did I get on Working Girl? Oh, I got a B+.
All right.
B+.
Maybe he's a Harrison Ford fan. Should have done one on Indy, and then you would have gotten A-.
He wrote, better job. Be careful how you handle a decision of things like sex scenes. Your choices may be just, but people may misunderstand you. Ooh. So I went to the paper and I was complaining that there were too many sex scenes in this movie. Seems kind of funny.
A guy in college complaining that there are too many sex scenes. So that begs the question is, the most important thing about going to the all-girls school and making a movie of them, did you get any dates out of it?
Well, I ended up meeting a girl that I ended up writing letters to and ended up moving back to North Carolina to be with her. I believe I've told that story as well.
I don't think you have on this show. I think you've told it to me. I don't think you've gone to that detail on here, but so the answer is yes.
Yes. So at the time, I made a lot of friends who were girls. I didn't hook up or kiss anyone when I was there, but I kept in touch with some of the girls I liked. And over time, this one girl, I ended up coming to visit her, coming back for a flight, and we ended up getting together. And I ended up moving out there after I graduated from UW. So.
Yep.
I think I talked about that because I worked for Nabisco at the time, and so I remember on another show I showed a picture of me with a stack of Nabisco crackers.
For those of you who have been watching loyally from the beginning, you go, I remember that show.
And others are like, eh?
Back in episode 6.
All right, so this is the thing, Norb, I wanted to share with you. And,
there's more. Okay.
This is the biggie. It's a little long, but I find this kind of fascinating because I read this and realize how many movies I've not seen. So at the end of the course, the professor gave us a packet, and this is a 4-page packet, and the title is Movies for Serious Students of the Cinema.
Oh, so this is his suggestions.
Are you a serious student of the cinema? Would you consider yourself a serious student of the cinema?
Nah, I'm too goofy to be serious. But
all right,
yeah,
I'm going to go down this list. It's long, but I think it captures this list on tape. And there's so many movies here that I've never heard of. So I'm curious, Norb. Let's find out how many of these movies you've seen.
I guess I should keep.
And he lists them by director. So the first director is Woody Allen. And he has 4 Woody Allen films. He has Manhattan, Annie Hall, Interiors, and Hannah and Her Sisters. Of those 4 Woody Allen films, and I will be the first to say I've only seen Annie Hall.
I think I've seen some of Annie Hall. I don't think that counts. So nope, I have a 0. So I'm not serious. I already told you that.
At this point, you are not serious.
So far, I get a F in his class.
The next director is Robert Altman, and he has 4 films. He has MASH, A Wedding, 3 Women, and Nashville. I've seen MASH.
Nope.
It's only
never liked
Robert
MASH.
Altman.
I didn't like this TV show, and I never saw the movie, so no.
You remember Robert Altman did that movie called The Player.
I like The Player. I was
know
hoping
you
that'd
like
be on
that.
the list. I would have said
it's
yes
not on
to
the
that
list,
one.
though. So apparently that's not serious enough. The Player is not serious enough for this list. The next is Michelangelo Antonini, La Ventura, Red Desert, Blow Up, and The Passenger.
I think I saw Blow Up, if it's the same Blow Up.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't have the year. So I don't think I've seen any of those movies.
Let me see. And The Passenger. Or am I thinking of Passenger 57 with Wesley Snipes?
That is not what he's talking about. Where's Gremlins on here?
Blow Up Wikipedia. Is it 1966? Oh, then I haven't seen it.
Yeah. No. Michelangelo Antonioni.
Nope.
Antonioni. All right, the next director. Denis Arcand. 2 films. Dirty Money and The Decline of the American Empire. No clue on those.
Nope. Yep, I suck.
Next director, Ingmar Bergman. Smiles of a Summer Night, Wild Strawberries, The Seventh Seal, and Persona. Nope.
Nope.
I know what you're thinking. I've seen Seven with Brad Pitt. Does that count?
I saw Seals, Navy SEALs. Oh, that's different.
It's
That's
not the
with Charlie
Seventh
Sheen.
Seal.
Nope.
The next director, Bernardo Bertolucci. The Conformist, Last Tango in Paris, and The Last Emperor. Now, The Last Tango in Paris and The Last Emperor are titles I'm familiar with, but I've not seen. How about you?
Same. At least I recognize the titles, but I can't say that I've seen that one. The Last Emperor. I thought that was. Which one did Spielberg do that was of that?
Empire of the
Empire
Sun.
of the Sun. Okay, Last Emperor. Okay, all right, there's an emp in there. Okay, I didn't see those either.
This is when we're listing all these movies
The
that
Watchmen?
you're desperate to try to find some connection, so you hear one word in the title, and of course it transforms your brain to some 80s flick. The next director, John Boorman. Deliverance,
I see that.
Excalibur,
Seen it?
The Emerald Forest, and Hope and Glory.
I think I saw 3 of those.
Oh, you're serious at this moment.
Yeah, I saw Excalibur. If it's the same Excalibur that I'm thinking of. And then what was the first one?
Deliverance.
Yep, saw that one. It's a great movie. Emerald Forest. Yeah, I saw this one. It had the 2 kids in it.
So if I'd have said to you, who directed Deliverance? I bet you would not have said John Boorman.
No, the only thing I remember from Deliverance is squeal like a pig.
No, I would have said Norb. Who directed Deliverance? You would have said that's easy. Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, yep. And I was in it. And Ronnie Cox with this famous scene. And then, Ned Beatty, squeal like a pig. Just messed up my throat doing it. And then
Norb's catching his throat, I'll hold this piece of paper up to the camera. You can see the old style Courier typewriter mimeograph. Even that, it reminds me of going back in time.
The ones they used to make dittos out of, right?
Yep. So a lot of the characters have slightly been chopped off or just faded out just through I'm sure the wear of the typewriter that was used to type this
So is that it? Or is there more?
Oh, there's a lot more. Stan Brakhage. One movie called The Peaceable Kingdom.
Nope.
Okay. Robert Bresson. One movie called The Diary of a Country Priest.
Nope.
And the question is anyone following along with us going, oh yeah, I've seen that? No, I'm amazed at all these titles that are for serious students of the cinema that I've never heard of. So clearly my professor had some sense of
If people have been
movies.
watching or listening to our show to have gotten to this episode, clearly they would know that none of these movies fit anything that we watched prior in our list. I mean, we got stuff like 80s comedies, so I don't think any of those are on his list.
He does have George Lucas on here.
Oh,
So,
okay.
And,
All right,
and
continue.
without me even remembering, though, I'm sure it's going to say Star Wars and THX 1138. I'm sure that'll be the 2 on the list for George Lucas.
Or maybe it'll be, if we want to go non-super commercial, maybe it would do the one before he did Star Wars, American Graffiti. But anyway, continue.
Director Todd Browning. 2 movies, Dracula and Freaks. You ever heard of Freaks? I don't know what that's about.
It does sound familiar, but
You ever seen Dracula?
I've seen so many Dracula movies, but I don't know if it's the one that he's talking about.
I know. It's like, which Dracula? I've seen Dracula Dead and loving it. Is that right?
I don't know. Nosferatu? No, that's not Dracula, is it? Anyway, not sure. And there's a lot of Freaks. There's like a Freaks 2019, Freaks 2018. I'm sure that's not obviously the one.
Nope.
You have to go back further, but I'll just safely say no, because I can't say for sure that I would have seen those.
Okay.
Go on.
This director's name is Louis Benoul. 3 films. The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeois. Belle de Jour. That Obscure Object of Desire.
Those first two sound boring just from the title. It's like, God, I really want to watch this.
He just turned over in his grave going, oh, you destroyed my art with that comment. Okay, the next director, Frank Capra. We definitely know that guy's name. 3 films. It's a Wonderful Life, Meet John Doe, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and Mr. Deeds Goes to Town. Foreign films, actually. I've seen It's a Wonderful Life many times.
Yep.
Who hasn't?
Obviously. The other ones, a couple of those Goes to Washington one sounds familiar, but about it.
I like all the titles. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Mr. Deeds Goes to Town. Where's Mr. Kawili Goes to the Cinema? Okay, Claude Chabrol, The Unfaithful Wife and The Butcher. No idea.
Nope.
Charlie Chaplin, The Gold Rush, City Lights, Modern Times, and Limelight.
Modern Times, I've seen a lot of clips out of. Kind of like the Buster Keaton one. I can't say I've actually watched any one from start to finish, but I've seen a lot of scenes from it. I think Modern Times is the one I probably know the most. But not have seen it in its entirety, so I guess that would not count, just having seen the movie.
Francis F. Coppola, he's got 2 films, The Godfather 1 and The Godfather 2. I guess Apocalypse Now isn't considered important based on this person's list. I'm a little surprised at that.
Seen these 2.
Okay, here's a director named Costa Gravas. 2 films, Z is in the letter Z, and Missing. No clue. Never heard of him.
Nope.
Okay. Next director, Salvador Dali. Now that name sounds familiar.
Oh yeah, it does.
One film, Un Chien Andalou. No clue.
Thought I had a chance. No.
Yep. Is he related to the Dalai Lama by any chance?
I know that name is really seriously sounds familiar, but I don't know that one.
Next director, Vittoro De Sica, probably butchered that name. One movie called The Bicycle Thief. I have heard that title.
I've heard of that too.
Not seen it.
Nope.
Next director, Walt Disney. Have you ever heard of Walt Disney?
Sounds kind of familiar.
He's got 2 films.
Isn't that the brother of Roy?
2 films, Fantasia and Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs.
Yay, 2 for 2, another one.
Here's the Carl Dreyer, one movie called Joan of Arc. I don't know who Joan of Arc is, but I've not seen the film.
Yep, same.
All right, let's see if you know this one. The director's name is Sergei Eisenstein. He did a film called The Battleship Potemkin.
Oh, that's a famous one too.
Famous. Yep, I have seen that. I saw that in the class. He did a movie called Strike. 2 movies, Yvonne the Terrible 1 and Yvonne the Terrible 2, and Alexander Nevsky. That is the end of
Potemkin. I think I did see that one.
Well, that's in the movie on the Touchables. They based the stair sequence with the baby carriage off the famous Odessa Steps sequence, which was from the Battleship Potemkin.
Right.
Page 2. The director's name is R.W. Fassbinder. 3 movies, Lola, The Marriage of Maria Braun, and Berlin Alexanderplatz. Nope. All right. Federico Fellini. La Strada, 8.5. Not to be confused with 9.5 weeks, because I know that's what you're thinking of. Juliet of the Spirits, Armicord, and Satricon. And as I go through this list, I just realized there are so many movies that were made that we will never see.
Yep. Not enough time in a day to get to those obscure ones, too. Obscure to us.
But
obviously,
this is a unique list that has only existed for the last 30, 40 years on this piece of paper in my box. So now it's being recorded on tape, and maybe it'll give someone an idea of something to see that's really different. The next director's name is John Ford. We know he did Stagecoach, The Informer, The Searchers, and She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. Not to be confused with Tie Me a Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree song.
Sadly, I don't think I've seen any of those either.
All right, next director, D.W. Griffith. Birth of a Nation, Judith of Bethulia, Way Down East, and Orphans of the Storm.
I know I've seen some of Birth of a Nation.
Birth of a Nation is, I think, something you're not supposed to watch now because it's, I believe, considered to be very racial.
But it was historically one of those films that is kind of generationally one of the first. I can't remember what year it came out, but early cinema. Kind of like, you must watch this.
This director's name is Werner Herzog. 3 films: Acquire, The Wrath of God, Every Man for Himself and God Against All, and Fitzcarraldo.
I'd hope. The name sounded familiar, but nope, don't know those.
The next director's name is Alfred Hitchcock. You heard of him? 4 films.
A couple.
The 39 Steps, Rear Window, Notorious, and Psycho. I don't know about
2.
Notorious. That's the one I haven't heard of that one. Okay. Howard Hawks, 4 films: Bringing Up Baby, His Girl Friday, The Big Sleep, and Red River. Nope.
I thought maybe think of Hudson Hawk, crappy movie. And then he said something about a baby. I thought a Baby Driver.
And something about a river, right? Is that a river runs through it? No, Red River. The next director, George Roy Hill. Okay, he directed a film that I actually told you we need to review, which I have never seen. Do you know who George Roy Hill directed?
Nope.
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
I've seen that. That's right. That is historic.
His other 3 films are The Sting, A Little Romance, and Slaughterhouse-Five.
Well, The Sting. Seen the 2 then.
Seen The Sting.
Yeah.
Slaughterhouse-Five. I don't know. Sounds like a horror movie, but
It does.
I have a feeling it's not.
Yeah. Nope.
Next director, Dennis Hopper. He's got 1 film. Do you know which film directed by Dennis Hopper?
I know films he was in, but I don't know. I might actually go, oh yeah. But
Easy Rider.
oh yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Hey, John Huston. The Treasure of Sierra Madre and The African Queen. I've heard of The African Queen.
I've heard of both of those, but never seen them.
So have I. James Ivory. 2 movies, A Room with a View and Maurice.
Room with a View sounds familiar. I don't know if I've seen it.
Elia Kazan. I'm guessing this is a female. I'm hoping, because I have not listed a single female on this list, and this just goes to show back then there were no female directors, which I'm very thankful that today we have plenty of female directors, and that is no longer a source of discrimination, that women were just not allowed to direct movies back in the 50s and 60s. So the 2 movies that Elia Kazan directed are On the Waterfront and East of Eden.
On the Waterfront.
That has a famous line called, I should have been a contender. I just know that.
Who's the actor in that?
I do not know.
It's not, let's see. Marlon Brando. I feel like I've seen this one. Long time ago in a class or something. What was the other one?
East of Eden.
I feel like I've seen that too. That was a movie, huh? Feels like it sounds more like a TV drama.
Well, I think they made a kind of a remake, but they called it West of Eden in the 80s.
Are you serious?
No.
Oh, it's got James Dean in it. Is that right? Oh, I should have seen this. I don't think I have. Nope.
I have yet to see a James Dean film in my life. I feel like I should.
Rebel Without a Cause. That's kind of the main one.
Have you seen that?
Top of the James Dean list.
Have you seen
I've
Rebel?
seen parts of it. I don't think I've seen the whole thing.
Next director, Buster Keaton. And of course, what did he show us in class? Cops. Is Cops on this list? No. I think I should give my professor a C+ for that. He's got 4 Buster movies: The General, Sherlock Jr., Steamboat Bill Jr., and Our Hospitality. All right, next director, Stanley Kubrick. He has 5 films. He has 5 films.
At least 2.
Norb, why don't you guess what these 5 films are on his list from Kubrick? And don't say Eyes Wide Shut. That wasn't out yet.
I bet Space Odyssey's in there.
Yes. That's 1. 4 left.
The Shining.
Not on the list.
What the heck? Clockwork Orange.
Yes, that's 2. 3 to go.
All of a sudden, it's real downhill.
Like start to go.
Stanley Kubrick. What else did he do? All of a sudden, I'm forgetting now. Those are all the ones I remember. I'm missing something. I can't remember. Nope, I'm going to throw in the towel.
Okay,
What else?
3 left. Paths of Glory.
Nope, wouldn't have gotten that one.
Doctor Strangelove.
Oh, of course, Doctor Strangelove. Okay, missed
have you
that
seen
one.
that? I've not seen Doctor Strangelove.
I've seen parts of it. I'm really good at seeing parts of things.
Just parts. And Barry Lyndon. I'm aware of, but
Strangelove I should have had. Strangelove I should have had.
The next director, I'm sure you've heard of this person, Akira Kurosawa.
Oh, yes.
So there are 5 films from Akira Kurosawa. Do you want to take a shot at any of these?
They're not on the tip of my tongue, so just go for it.
Well, the first one is when you think of Akira Kurosawa, you think of The Seven Samurai, which I have not seen. I just know that's a title associated with him. Rashomon, Throne of Blood, Ikuru, and Ron.
I wouldn't have guessed that was the Samurai one. Maybe I had a chance at that one. I don't know the other ones.
Fritz Lang, 3 films, Metropolis, Siegfried, and The Big Heat. There was a person we used to work with in the corporate world that always talked about Metropolis.
Yeah.
He was the guy that would say, have you ever heard the soundtrack from Terminator 2?
Or The Rocketeer.
Or The Rocketeer. He talked about Metropolis a lot.
What was it? The Big what?
The Big Heat.
The Big Chill? No. The Big Easy? No, not that one either. No, Big Heat. No, never saw it. There's other bigs that I saw. Big. Saw Big.
Did you ever see The Big Butt?
Is that the movie you made with your women's class? Oh!
Yeah.
You're the next director. I got a role for you.
Here's the next director. His name is George Lucas, and there's 3 films. Do you care to guess what the 3 George Lucas films you should see from 1989? This is when this list was published.
THX 1138, American Graffiti, and Howard the Duck.
You're not. I know you're not being serious on Howard the Duck.
The first 2 though.
Star Wars, American Graffiti. Yep, you were correct. American Graffiti, THX 1138, and Star Wars.
I would have said Star Wars, so I was just kidding about Howard the Duck.
Next director, Louis Malle. 3 movies, Lacombe Lucien, My Dinner with Andre, and Pretty Baby. No clue on those. Okay. Next director, Vincent Mellini, Meet Me in St. Louis, and Some Came Running. I've heard of Meet Me in St. Louis. Next director, Kenji Misoguchi, The Life of Oharu and Ugetsu. Next director, F.W. Murnau, Nosferatu, and The Last Man. Okay, well, there's the Nosferatu. And The Last Man. I saw Nosferatu. It was a silent film, if I remember correctly. Mike Nichols. Do you know what Mike Nichols directed?
He did a bunch of 80s stuff.
There's 2 movies on here.
I can't think of which they were.
I'll give you a hint. Hello, summer, my old friend. I'll come with you once again.
Graduate.
Yes. The other movie is called Carnal Knowledge. Don't know about that.
Okay. Well, he did other ones too that I think are more famous besides The Graduate.
This is all that my professor thinks are worthy of your time.
Mike Nichols, there's got to be other.
Next director, Laurence Olivier. Have you ever heard of Laurence Olivier?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Got 3 films. Want to take a shot at him? I'll give you a hint. They're all Shakespeare titles.
Sorry, I got distracted about the whole Mike Nichols thing. I guess so he did Working Girl, Wolf, The Birdcage, Silkwood, Charlie Wilson's War. So I knew a few of those other ones. Seen Working Girl, Wolf, and Birdcage. Okay. Sorry, who are we on with now?
Laurence Olivier. 3 films. I'll give you a hint. They're all Shakespeare titles.
Romeo and Juliet. Hamlet.
Hamlet, yes. On Romeo and Juliet.
What's that other?
Henry V, Hamlet, and Richard III.
Okay. What was the first one?
Henry V.
Henry VIII.
Henry V.
Henry V. Okay.
Henry V. Max Ophuls. 2 films, La Ronde and Lola Monte. No idea. Yasirijo Ozu. Late Spring, The Flavor of Green Tea Over Rice.
What the heck?
Floating Weeds and Tokyo Story. Clearly a Japanese director. Norb, would you have an interest in seeing the flavor of green tea over rice?
No, I don't even want to try it. I think I did try that and when I was in Japan, but it was not one of those recipes I took home with me.
Well, now you know there's a movie with that title.
Okay, good to know that I know that now.
Next director, G.W. Pabst, The Joyless Street and Pandora's Box. Next director, Pier Paolo Pasolini, Acatona, The Gospel According to St. Matthew, and Decameron.
Okay.
Man, these names. Sam Peckinpah, The Wild Bunch, and Junior Bonner. Never heard of him. Arthur Penn, Bonnie and Clyde, and Little Big Man.
Those sound
Bonnie
familiar.
and Clyde. Bonnie and Clyde, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think I saw that though.
Next director,
Little Big Man. Didn't that have Jodie Foster in it?
I think you're right. I think you're right about that.
Did it? Or maybe not.
Okay, the next director, you've heard of this guy. His name is Roman Polanski.
Oh yeah.
He's got 3 movies: Knife in the Water, Rosemary's Baby, and Tess.
I saw Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, well, good for you. Was it good? Did you see parts of it?
Kind of creepy. I think I should watch the whole thing. But yeah, it's kind of a famous horror movie. The devil. And I was wrong about that. I don't think Jodie Foster was anything near that movie. So I was way off. It was Dustin Hoffman though, and Faye Dunaway. So that's some stars, but
good try.
I don't know what I was thinking of. There was something with Jodie Foster, a little something. I don't know what it is. I want to know what that is. Jodie Foster. I'm telling you.
Silence of the Lambs.
No, there was something that she did where there's a little something in there. I'm determined to figure out what that is. Go on. You can continue.
Next director, I don't know how to say this. Vsevolod Pudovkin. I think this is Russian. 2 movies, Mother and The End of St. Petersburg. The End of St. Petersburg. Next director, Carol Reed, another female. The Third Man,
Little
Odd
Man
Tate.
Little Man Tate.
There you go.
That's the one. I knew there was
Once
something
again,
little.
the title makes you think of something other title. Some other title. Something else movies.
I wasn't completely
What
way
else
off.
movies?
Kind of close.
Carol Reed, The Third Man, Odd Man Out, and The Fallen Idol. Jean Renoir, 3 movies. Bodu Saved from Drowning, The Rules of the Game, and The Grand Illusion. We watched The Rules of the Game in the class. Remember, it was a lot of arguing, a lot of talking. It was like a relationship movie. That's all I remember.
Okay.
Alain Resnais, Hiroshima Mon Amour, Last Year at Marienbad, Mon Oncle d'Amérique. Next director, Leni Riefenstahl, Triumph of the Will, Olympiad. Next director, Eric Romer, Claire's Knee, My Night at Maud's, Pauline at the Beach, and Summer.
It's getting worse.
It is. Next director, Roberto Rossellini, 1 movie called Open City. Next director, Ken Russell. Of course, I think of Ken Russell, I think of Lair of the White Worm, which was even covered in that documentary watch, but that's not on this list. It's got 2 movies from Ken Russell, Tommy and the Devils. Tommy, I guess that's the movie, that must be the pinball movie, if I'm going to make that connection correct here. John Schlesinger, Midnight Cowboy and Billy Liar. Midnight Cowboy, I know of. John Travolta, I believe.
Yeah.
All right, here's someone you know. Steven Spielberg. He has 4 Steven Spielberg movies on here. What would they
that's
be?
That's the tough one, is which ones. This is 1989, so it was pre...
Yep. You got to think, what was made up till 1989 by Spielberg?
It was before he did the one he won the Academy for. He was Academy Awardless up to this point. So what would it be his top movies that would be on
4
some
movies.
artsy professor's list? That means
Hey,
you
you've
have
got
to go
10
away
seconds. Go.
From Jaws.
That's 1.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
That's 2.
I'm going to say Raiders of the Lost Ark is probably going to not put on the list.
Nope, that's 3.
E.T.
That's 4. Wow, you scored 100%.
Boom.
A plus.
Ain't no C plus in this report, baby.
Well, since of all these directors, the only one you got even close was Steven Spielberg. You clearly are a serious student of the cinema.
Yes, I say
because you knew Spielberg's movies. All right, next director, Preston Sturges, The Great McGinty and Sullivan's Travels. All right, we're on our last page.
Gulliver's Travels. It could be the show on the Banana Splits show.
That was on Banana Splits. Oh, was it Gulliver's Travels on Banana Splits? Is that it? No.
Actually, close. Not really.
Next director, Hiroshi Teshigara. One film called The Woman in the Dunes. Not related to Dune. Next director, Agnes Varda. Cleo from 5 to 7. One signs, the other doesn't. I'm sorry, one sings, the other doesn't. The G was kind of lost here in this mimeograph print. And Vagabond. Yeah, what I'm seeing right now is anytime there's a G, it's missing the lower part of it. Clearly that was the key on the typewriter that was
right
down. The G.
Funny.
Luciano Visconti. Obsession, and The Earth Trembles. Joseph von Sternberg, The Blue Angel, Shanghai Express, Blonde Venus, and The Scarlet Empress. Great titles, never saw any of them. Shanghai Express rings a bell, but I didn't see it. I know it's a train.
Or maybe that's a mix between...
I hope so.
Like, there's another Shanghai movie and then the Pineapple Express. It's like a mix between the two. Nope, I don't know a single one of them.
Eric von Stroheim, Foolish Wives and Greed. Norbert Kawili, one movie, Frayed.
Cinematic expressionism at its best right there.
Oh, wait, 2 movies, Frayed and Trial by Fire. All right, I missed that. It was slightly messed up on the typing. I got it figured out. Frayed and Trial by Fire. Mike Lorraine, The White Envelope, The Jogger and the Stranger. We're on the list, Norb. Okay, next director, Orson Welles. This has 5 Orson Welles movies, which makes me realize I've not seen most of Orson Welles' films.
Well, you gotta have Citizen Kane and War of the Worlds on there.
Actually, War of the Worlds is not on here. Just Citizen Kane. It's got The Magnificent Ambersons, which I have this film because it came with my Citizen Kane Blu-ray Collector's Edition. So I have The Magnificent Ambersons. That was actually, I think, his last movie he made.
Okay.
Because I believe it wasn't completed and he lost funding and it was completed later. There's a whole story behind that one. Journey into Fear, The Lady from Shanghai, and Chimes at Midnight. Can you hear the chimes at midnight? That's what Christopher Plummer's General Chang Klingon character says in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country.
So
maybe he was talking about this movie.
Well, the fact that you saw a movie where somebody quoted a scene from that movie means you kind of know that movie.
Yeah, I kind of know it because General Chang Klingon Chief of Staff said that in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. Okay, this director's name, you're going to laugh at this. This director's name is Wim Wenders.
Wim, like W-I-M?
W-I-M.
Oh,
Wim Wenders.
There's a real Wim out there.
Wim directed some films that we didn't know about. There are 4 films. Alice in the Cities, The Goalie's Anxiety, At the Penalty Kick, State of Things, and The Wings of Angels. No idea.
That's nice. Good job, Wim.
And the very last one on this long, long list, Lena Wertmuller. 2 movies, 7 Beauties, and Swept Away. So this completes
Swept Away
list.
Did I see that? Swept Away? Wait, that sounds familiar.
No, you're thinking of Far and Away.
No, there really wasn't Swept Away. But there's 2. There's one in 2002 and there's one in 1974. Obviously, I'm thinking of the wrong one. So. Nope, didn't see that one. I did see a different Swept Away though.
In conclusion, this is a 4-page list. I've probably seen less than 5% of these films. So what does that say about me?
You're not a serious student of the cinema. And neither am I.
Well, that means you're the same because I don't think you've seen any more than me off this list, so we suck. That's what this list says, is we suck.
I saw Rosemary's Baby and you didn't, so I got one up on you.
Yeah, but I saw the rules of the game and you didn't, so I'm right back there with you.
But you had to watch that in school, right?
I still saw it.
So you're forced to.
Doesn't matter where you saw it. You just saw it.
Yeah. You didn't choose to. I chose to watch Rosemary's Baby. You didn't have a choice. You had to watch it.
There's no asterisk on this list that says if you saw this in film class, it doesn't count.
There should be. And there should be a deduction that you didn't see E.T. when it came out in the theater. You should lose a point for that as well. Okay.
This is like a race to the bottom we're doing here.
Oh. All right. So is that it? Is that it for the surprise?
Well, that's it.
That's the longest surprise in history.
Just going through that list, though, I realize there are just a lot of films out there I have not seen and never will. So I'm just going to focus on the ones I've seen, and I'm going to try to see a new one when I can that we can do a review on, and we'll just have to call that good. But there's probably some people out there that look down on us and say, how can you do a movie review show when you haven't seen all these movies?
Oh, well.
Yeah. That person is the one in the back of the jazz bar going, yes, yes, yes.
And they'll be at our show going, no.
That's like saying, right. I like jazz. I listen to Kenny G.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well,
all right.
So that is that. We strayed far from Rear Window, but that is our review. Thanks for watching with us. Before we sign off, I just want to say another thank you to all of you guys on the YouTube channel. Please do that thing where you like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And if you're listening on podcast, please continue to do so. Tell people about us and send us a note on comment or an email. And we'd love to hear from you and see what you think of our show. And if you have any ideas of what you'd like us to talk about, we'd love to hear about it. All right. I'm Norb.
And I'm Mike.
And we are The Watchmen.
The men who watch. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for watching The Watchmen.
Please click on here to watch other episodes, and be sure to hit that like button too.
And please subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you'll always be alerted to any future episodes.
It really helps us out, and we appreciate it.
We'll see you next time. And remember, we'll be watching.